Good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure for me to welcome you today. Besides my normal daytime job as a professor and cooperative extension specialist, I'm also the director of the CLEAR Center, as was mentioned. And our goal is to improve sustainability in and around animal agriculture. I have to say, I cannot think of an event that's more representative of what we do as a center, as a department, as a college, than what we have here today. We have regulators, we have policymakers, we have NGO, we have industry members, we have people from throughout academia, either here in person today or online. And I really looked at the RSVP list, and I have to tell you, we have the who is who in this area from throughout the state, the states, and also international here with us. I want to thank Secretary Ross and the California Department of Food and Ag. I want to thank my dean, Helene Dillard, and her staff. Those have done incredible work in order to make this event happen. And I also want to thank my CLEAR Center staff, also very much involved in everything conference related. I was tasked to talk to you about California's approach to managing emissions from dairies. California, as many of you know, is a leader in dairy production, not just with respect to productivity and product quality and so on, but also with respect to work on sustainability issues. I think we have probably the most ambitious climate goals of any place that I've been to in this country and throughout the world. And believe me, I have been to many places throughout the world recently, many of whom wanted to know, what is it that you do in California that we can imitate and repeat here where we are. So I will talk to you about meeting the call, how California is pioneering a pathway to significant dairy sector methane reductions, because this is what we need to do. So do I have a clicker here? Oh, there's the clicker. All right. So some of my colleagues and I have recently issued a report to California agencies and the public at large, outlining where we stand currently with respect to achieving the climate goal that our state has put forward. And it resulted in the report that you see here. If you take a photo of this QR code, it will get you to the actual report. It is titled, California's Pioneering a Pathway to Significant Dairy Methane Reductions. Dan Sperling and Ermias Cabriab were co-authors with me, and we really looked under every stone in order to find out what we have done so far, where we are going, and how we're doing so far. So here are my co-authors. I just mentioned their names. California dairies have to, and not just the dairies, but all methane producers, reduce methane by 40%, 40. And that is no small task. I've recently been to New Zealand and to Australia, to Uruguay, Paraguay, Brazil, and other places, and they all scratch their heads wondering how in the world can a 40% reduction of methane be achieved without having an open revolution of our farming sector. And I have news for those folks asking this, because we are making real progress in achieving this goal. It's not surprising to many of you that the dairy sector is a significant part of the methane issue in our state. Almost half of the methane in our state comes from the dairy sector. You see non-dairy makes up 10%, but dairy almost half, as I said. The dairy sector alone, and that's the number to remember, needs to reduce 7.2 million metric tons. 7.2, that's the number. And the beef sector, 1.8 million metric tons. So that is the goal, and if you think of this as the goal, then we now need to reduce 40% of that. So what you see on this slide are a couple of things that I didn't see when I started here 21 years ago. You see a dairy, and in the front of this dairy you see plantings of trees. On the left you see large areas of solar panels. In the very back, it's just a small structure on this slide, but it's an anaerobic digester. You see the silage is oftentimes now packaged in ways that minimizes emissions. There are many things that dairies are doing that they hadn't done 5 or 10 years ago. And many of those are really motivated by environmental guidances or sometimes regulations. So where have we gone so far with respect to reducing emissions, and where do we have to go? We have seen a small reduction of the dairy herd in California of anywhere between 0.5 to 1%, and that's called attrition, this herd size reduction. It's not clear where those cows are going. Are they just taken out of production, they are gone, or are some of them also going into other states, which would be a case of leakage, but it will cumulatively lead to 2.6 to 3.3 million metric tons of CO2 equivalent reductions, just this attrition alone. Alternative management, manure management practices have the capacity of reducing 0.6 to 1.1 million metric tons. Dairy digesters are the biggest success in the state with respect to reducing methane from the dairy sector. The potential here is 4 million metric tons. And then we have feed additives, many of which are not online yet, but that's really what we are talking about at this conference. And there's a range that's pretty broad, from 250,000 to 2.2 million metric tons of CO2e that is possible in the years to come. So by 2030, we anticipate that numbers within these ranges will be achieved. And if you now put this all together, the total that we are expecting to achieve is outlined in blue, and that is a range between 7.6 to 10.6 million metric tons. I want to remind you, 7.2 is what we must reduce to achieve 40%. The range that we expect lies above that. And many of those reductions that you see here are not really coming at a major price to the dairies, but are oftentimes covered through either our carbon credit system or through incentives. So we are quite bullish to achieving this 40% reduction of methane by the year 2030. We are not likely to achieve this goal without using feed additives. Feed additives are an integral part of our strategy if we want to be successful. What this busy slide here shows is, on the left side, additives with various effectiveness of reducing methane, from 10% all the way to 50%. And then you see herd penetration. 50% would mean half of the dairies are using that particular or any of those additives. And an 80% herd penetration, of course, then means the majority of dairies would use an additive that would have such a effectiveness. So we have looked at various additives. Ermias Cabriab, my colleague from the Animal Science Department, has put this graph together showing different kinds of additives. They have different capacities in reducing enteric methane. This is not to be taken as, oh, we should all use the top performer there, because some of these additives have not just the intended, but also some unintended consequences. So we have to really comprehensively assess what the likelihood is for people to adopt a given additive. Are there side effects? Are there impacts on palatability? Are there impacts on toxicology? Are there issues around availability, and so forth? All of these issues have to be carefully considered. And the makeup of people in this room and online for this conference makes me very hopeful that we will be able to look at these issues in a very comprehensive way. We should be very careful to say, let's just jump on the most effective methane-reducing tool and run with it. We need to use tools that work, that don't lead to residues, that don't lead to efficiency issues, and so forth. But I'm very bullish to say that for many of those, we have already done holistic assessments, and we will continue to do so. I want to leave you with this. I think, not just as a scientist, but I think everybody in the room would understand, we are not at a point yet where we have a clear understanding of all the ins and outs. We also know that there are implementation issues. For example, if you have a feed additive and you want to go to the market, currently you're not allowed to have a label claim. And if you can't have a label claim, why would you sell something on the market if you can't tell the world what it does in reducing methane? So all of these issues have to be addressed, and others as well. And of course, we have to take the farmers along the ride. This cannot just be shoved down people's throats. That's very, very important. I think one of the greatest successes that we have seen so far, and by the way, so far we have reduced 2.56 million metric tons of CO2e through methane reductions here in the state. 2.56 of the 7.2. So we are well on our way of achieving the goal line. But how did we get there? We got there by using not the traditional cane approach like many other jurisdictions do, which is using rules, regulations, fines, maybe taxes, but we used the carrot approach of using an incentive-based voluntary approach. We motivated farmers to look into reducing methane, and we made it, we generated mechanisms for them to use tools to reduce emissions. And I think this is key. Using the carrot approach, taking farmers along, making sure they understand what's asked of them, and have them be part of a climate solution. And I think that's absolutely possible, and if it can work anywhere, it will work right here in this state. With that, I want to thank you for your attention. I want to hope that we all have a very productive and also fun meeting here, and I'm thrilled to be with you. I'm thrilled about this meeting. Let's have a good time together. Thank you very much.